Hello all of you. Today we are going to see types of loads. Last time we saw different types of stresses, and in the stresses many times we have mentioned the term load. That there is a load acting on the part and so on and so on. So when you say load, actually what are the different types of loads that come into picture? That is what we are going to learn today. So let me just show this in the form of a small chart. So the types of loads, you can see it starts like this. Static load, then there is dynamic load, and then there is the impact load. So the basic three types are: static load means something which is stationary all the time. Say for example, there is a table on the floor, so the weight of the table on the floor is going to be constant all the time. So that is something called as a static load. Okay. Now in the static load, you can show the static load in the form of a say graph, something like this. So with respect to time and load we show by P. So this load versus time graph is like this. That means the load is constant all the time. That is what is called a static load. Now in the variable load, there are different types. So you can maybe jot this down. Reversible load, then there is a repeated load, and then there is a fluctuating load. Now what is the meaning of reversible load? Reversible load means, if we again try to draw this in the form of a graph, then time versus load, okay, this will vary like this. That means this is P max, this is P minimum, and P max and P minimum, they are almost same. So that is what is called as radial. And P average is 0. P average is 0. So this in fact graphical representation immediately makes the things clear as to what it means. So this is the way, if the pattern is there, then that is called as a reversible load. Then comes the repeated load. Now repeated load is like this. So here P max, this is P minimum, and then of course this is P and T. So here P max and P minimum both are on one side. So you can say that P minimum here is 0, and then P max is, P average is half of P max. That means the load is only on one side. So suppose you take one rod, and that rod you are bending, again releasing it, bending, releasing. Only on one side you are bending and releasing it. That means the load is only in one direction or no load. There is no load in the other direction. In the first case, the load is like this all the time. That means you are bending this way, applying load like this also, like this also, like this also, like this also. It keeps on changing like this. That is the first one, reversible load, repeated load. Then comes the fluctuating. Now fluctuating load is, it is on one side all the time. So this is P average, this is P maximum, and this is P minimum. So you can see here that P max is more than 0, P minimum is also more than 0, and P average is also more than 0. So everything is on one side. That means the part is always loaded. Only the amount of load keeps on changing, but it never happens that the load is 0 or the opposite load. So the load exists all the time, but it is fluctuating in nature. That is called as a fluctuating load. So this is the way we can represent the variation of the load with respect to time, and in the process we can explain what are the different types. Static load, P is constant. Variable load, it can vary like this or like this or like this. And now let's see what is the repeated load. Now repeated load is something, or rather impact load is something which is, if you want to show in a similar way with respect to time and load. Now here the graph comes like this, that the graph starts from here, then it suddenly goes up and comes down. Maybe again it can happen like this. That means the load is not there at all. Suddenly the load comes of a larger amount, and the next second the load is not there. That means suppose you take a hammer and you hit the hammer on some part, then the load which is applied by the hammer on the part, that load is instant. Only for a short second, few seconds, not even second, some part of a second the load is applied, but after that the load is not there. So that load is called as impact load. Normally the impact load value is very, very high, but its duration is very, very small. And its effects are also, most of the time the effects are severe. So that is the impact load, and they are the three basic types of loads which we have just now seen. Now let's see, after we see the load, now let us see what happens when a load is acted upon on a part. So now take this example, suppose it is a rod. Now on this rod, let us say we have started applying a load. Now we are taking a case of what happens to the object when the load goes on increasing. That is what we are now going to discuss after this. So when there is a part like this and when you start applying a load, so as you go on applying load, that is P, so you go on increasing P, then what will happen as you go on increasing P? The length of the part also will go on increasing. Okay, length will also increase. Take this part made up of, let us say, rubber, because rubber is something which is very easy to imagine what happens. So if there is a rod of rubber, and that rod I am going to stretch in the form of by applying a load P. So what will happen? As I apply load P, the length of the rod goes on increasing. Now suppose I remove the load, the length will again come back to normal. Okay, so if I go on doing it again and again, what will happen? That is something what we are going to see next. Okay, so that concept what we are talking about, that is a concept represented by stress versus strain diagram. So what the diagram means, it is like this. So we have prepared a graph. X-axis is strain, y-axis is stress. You know what is strain? Strain is change in length to the original length. That means when I apply a load, this length L is going to change to DL. So L plus DL is the new length. So the change in length is DL to the original length L. So DL upon L, that is what is called as a strain. And stress, as you know, load upon this cross-sectional area. So now what happens? Suppose this is the representation. So suppose you go on increasing the load that is applied on a, let us say, rubber band or a rubber part, rubber rod, which is of course applicable to steel also, any metal also, but this becomes easy to understand. Therefore I am giving you an example of a rubber instead of a steel, because it is difficult to imagine that the steel gets stretched when I apply load. Although it gets stretched, but that becomes slightly difficult to imagine. So let's call this as a rubber rod, and then we apply load, and now when you apply load, what happens? Its length increases, so that you can see length increases, stress increases. So if you have got this much change in length, then accordingly there is going to be change in the stress also. So you go on increasing the stress, the strain also is going to increase. Now if at any time you remove the load, then it will come back to the original position. So now that keeps on happening, but then that doesn't happen all the time. If you stretch it at a particular length and go beyond that length, and now if you release, you will find that now there is a change in the length. That means the length is not going to remain like what it is earlier, it is going to change. Now when that happens, that is you have reached this point. So this is a point which is very, very important point, and up to this point you can see that stress is proportional to strain. And therefore this is called as elastic limit. elastic limit. That means within the elastic limit, the object is such that its stress is proportional to strain, and even if you remove the load, the object will come back to its original position. So for our design purpose, whatever parts we are going to talk about, and when we are applying a load on the part, that load is such that it is falling in this range. It is not going beyond. Now what happens when you go beyond? Just now we have seen that if you apply load beyond this point, that means if you increase the stress further, then what happens is now the object will not get its original position, and when the object is not going to come to its original position, from the design point of view, it is not good, because that part has got changed its dimension, and when the part changes its dimension because of the load, that part may not function the way we want it to be. Therefore, this is the region within which we are supposed to work. That means the stress should not exceed certain point, and the strain in that case is such that it can be reversible. Okay, now let's see what happens after this. Now after this, the curve is actually shown like this. There are certain points here. They are very close. I am just going to name these points: A, B, C, D. A, this is B, this is C, this lowest point is D. Then there are some more points, E and F. This is the highest point, that is E, and this is the point which is F. And this is of course O. So I'll write here O to A is elastic limit, where stress is proportional to strain. We have already seen this. Now what are the other points A, B, C, etc. that we will see. Now A to C is also elastic limit, but it is negligible. A to C is also elastic limit, but it is negligible. That means all these points are very, very close. In fact, A, B, C, D, all these points are very close. That means there is some change. There is some change in the sense that it is, see, B is not, the distance A to B, the region A to B is not following what has happened here. It is not a straight line, it is a curvature. That means there is some change in the property. Same thing, there is a change in the property between B and C, between C and D, but then all these things are negligible, so you can practically say that all these points are at one place. So when all of them are at one place, you can say that after A, the curve starts this way. Okay, it goes on having a curvature. That means the straight line is up to here, and after that the curvature starts. And when the curvature starts, what is happening at E? At E, I can say at E, this is the maximum stress. Maximum stress that can be applied is also called as ultimate stress. The ultimate stress, that means the maximum stress what you can apply is this. After this point, if you still apply stress, what will happen? That means in the same rubber band case, you go on stretching and stretching and stretching. Now you have gone to E. That means this is the maximum stress what it has withstood. Now here what happens? Now what happens is, after this point, the material will start yielding. That means the material will start getting stretched, and now you will not be able to apply more. Although you increase the force, still the stress will go on reducing, and then after some time, what happens at F? It is called as breaking stress. That means the part will fail here. The breakage will take place, the part will fail here. Okay. So what we have seen is, when we are operating a system and when we are operating, applying a load on a part, then when you go on beyond the elastic limit, then the stress versus strain curve is not linear. That means you cannot depend on that. Moreover, the object will not get its original shape, and moreover, at certain point of time, it is going to break also. Okay. So this is only for our information how the nature of the stress and strain is, and according to that, we are going to use this information for the purpose of design work. Now having seen this, now let's see the next thing. What are the different types of designs? Now let us see the approach of design. That means how do we design? When any part is designed or when the design process is applied, what are the ways in which you can apply the design process? So what is the approach that is to be applied? That is the next thing. So now let's see that there is a, let's say, rod again. I'm always taking a rod as a simple example which becomes easy to understand. So I can say that suppose this is a rod of, let's say, diameter D, and we have applied a load P. The length of the rod is L. So there is a rod of length L. To that rod we apply a load P, and we are going to design that rod. Now first of all, you are going to design means what? You are going to design means there is a situation like this where there is some component here and that component is supposed to take a load P. So if you see any problem, the problem starts like this, that there is some kind of external parameter that is applied on a part. Now that external parameter, I can, in fact here P is the external parameter. So here it is P, it can be torque, it can be moment, okay, etc. So in this case there is a force P, P is a force basically. So a force is applied as an external say parameter on a part, and now you are supposed to design this part. Now I am just talking as a broad process, general process, very very general process. Design something, some such object which is going to take this load P, which is the need. The need is there is a load and you have to overcome that load. So now the things start from what? First thing is, what will be the material? Because you can do something here, make some part, but when you make some part, it is of what material? So you need to know the material. So you have to find or decide or select. Select a material. Once you select a material, what happens? The material will have its own property. Okay? What property of the material we will use? Say some of the properties is trace. Each material will have its own trace. It will have its own, maybe say E, that is Young's modulus. That is E. F is trace. So once you select a material, that means you have decided that there is so much amount of stress that is possible, so much amount of Young's modulus is possible because of a particular material. Now having done that, next thing is you have brought some material, what you wanted to know, and then it has got certain stress and certain property basically. Now to that rod or to that material, what are you going to do? You are going to give some shape to this rod so that this rod will be able to take the load that is given. Now that means once you have selected a material, now you have to decide, or it is same as design the shape. And I should say you have to design, not design, just decide the shape first. That means having decided that, having selected the material, now we are going to think what will be the shape. So shape means you can say that I will make a round rod, I will make a square rod, I will make a rectangular rod, I will make a hollow square, I will make a hollow pipe, and so on. So many different cross sections can be there, which will be the shape of this material of the rod, which will be used as a part. So that part is going to take the load. So now we started with load as an external parameter. To overcome that load, we wanted to design this part, for which first thing is we have selected a material. After selecting the material, we have decided what is going to be the shape, like this or like this or like this or like this. So now we have at the moment come to the conclusion that let us go for a round rod That means the cross section be D diameter, and then a material will be also of certain specific stress, which is this stress F of this material. Now having done this, now the next job is, what is the next job? The next job is to make this part. So while making the part, you are given a material, a particular material, specific material. Now you have to arrive at certain diameter. Okay, you have to arrive at certain diameter D, so that that diameter can withstand the load. Now suppose you decide some diameter which is maybe not good enough, sufficient enough, then what will happen? Because of this load, the rod will break. That means the diameter which you have selected is, or the design is not correct. That means now the time is that you have to decide the size D in such a way that it will not fail. Okay, so decide, or design, I should say design the size, that means D, so that it should not fail. Decide the size, design the size D so that it will not fail and it will take the load. Now when you say it will not fail, that means what is the criteria for failure? What failure you are expecting? Now here the failure is expected of two types. What you will call as failure? Two things you will call as failure. Failure is by way of breakage. That means the part is broken into two parts. The rod is broken into two parts. There is a breakage, and the other is stretch. Stretch means it has stretched. That means you will say that if the rod of length L, if the length of the rod L increases by a certain amount, say like let's say 1%. That means this change in the length, let's say it is 1% or maybe 0.01 times L. 0.01 times L. That means 1% increase in the length. If that happens because of this load, then I will call it as a failure. That means by this load, I don't want the part to get stretched beyond 1%. If it is within 1%, it is okay. If it is beyond that, then although the rod is there, it is still taking load, I am going to call it as a failure. Because the criteria here is stretch. Stretching criteria, change in length is the criteria, and I am permitting only 1% as change in length. Just an example. So this is a stretch, that is the criteria of failure, and accordingly the design is done. Now this type of design